William Randolph Hearst's father, Senator George Hearst, had this to say when speaking to the press. "There's plenty of money if the boy really has his heart set on it, but I am in hopes that he will conclude after a while that one big paper is enough for one man to run." Awfully rich for a guy who once owned the largest gold, silver, and copper mine in the United States. But William Randolph Hearst had other ideas. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Ryan. I'm a guide here at Hearst Castle, and this is the second episode of Hearst the Publisher. I just want to remind everybody that during this ongoing coronavirus pandemic, California has mandated the wearing of face masks in all indoor and outdoor public areas, as well as maintaining at least 6 feet of physical distancing at all times. This is not just for your safety, but for the safety of others around you. This is consistent with CDC guidelines, and Hearst Castle still remains closed to the public at this time. After taking control of the San Francisco Examiner and establishing it as one of the most popular dailies on the Pacific Coast, rivaling the San Francisco Chronicle as the leading newspaper in the West, Hearst asked himself, what's next? And perhaps the answer is best encapsulated in a quote by the novelist Theodore Dreiser. "All really ambitious people, people who are destined to do or be anything in any line, eventually drifted there. Editors, newspapermen, actors, playwrights, songwriters, musicians, moneymakers. The town was full of them. And the best of it was, the best ones succeeded there. You couldn't keep the able down in New York." That's right, folks. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Hearst envisioned a chain of newspapers all across America, starting with major metropolitan areas. But he realized that a chain was not possible without the most competitive city in the world and the center of media and commercial influence in the United States, New York. So, where once his father George headed west to seek his fortune, his son William now headed east with the same fervor. New York City in the 1890s was a city of disparity, with a population rapidly exploding from 1.5 million to 3.5 million. With immigrants flooding in from Southern and Eastern Europe, New York became a city of ethnic exclusion. Stark were the images of fancy Fifth Avenue hotels and mansions, contrasted by the miles of shantytowns stretching along the east side. Hearst was well aware and understood the contrasts and distinctions between New York City ideology and everyone else, as he was from San Francisco. New Yorkers viewed the West as wildlands, or an untamed frontier struggling to attain some semblance of civilization. Hearst's most popular and profitable Sunday journal features was his color comics. Not only did these comics have very high artistic value, capable of capturing the imagination even if you weren't able to read them, but all of the characters were clearly immigrants. There was Happy Hooligan, an Irish-American tramp. The Katzenjammer Kids were German-Americans. The Yellow Kid looked somewhat Asian and Eastern European, but with an Irish name, Mickey Dugan. Created by Richard F. Outcault, the most popular American cartoonist who contributed to Pulitzer's World Sunday Humor page, the Yellow Kid cartoon series was very influential in the development of the comic strip. The character was based on life in the slums and was depicted as a mischievous, bald, big-eared, buck-toothed child wearing an oversized yellow nightshirt. The character became so popular that Pulitzer began using him in weekly advertisements to promote the Sunday paper. That is, until Hearst entered into a bidding war and eventually won. Hearst hired Outcault, bringing both the artist and the Yellow Kid away from Pulitzer and to their new home at the New York Journal. Now, Pulitzer did not give up. Instead, he answered back by asking artist George Lukes to draw his own versions of Outcault's characters, giving New York 2 Yellow Kids every Sunday competing against one another. The Yellow Kid battle between Hearst and Pulitzer may have delighted many, but it also inspired loathing from many of its critics. Irvin Wardman was an editor for the New York Press and was an aggressive advocate for liberal republicanism. A very outspoken man, he accused Hearst of running a paper without even the veneer of decency. He dismissed both Pulitzer's World and Hearst Journal as fake mongers, chambers of horrors, cesspools, sloughs, and purveyors of mendacity. It is Irvin Wardman who is said to have been the first editor to publish the phrase yellow journalism. It's a term devised to cover a wide range of journalistic sins, from inaccurate facts, political bias, moral deficiencies, poor taste, and sensationalism. William Randolph Hearst may have been well on his way to becoming one of the most powerful and intriguing private citizens of the 20th century, but with it came a label of a journalist with the worst reputation in the history of the trade. There you have a very brief history of how the term yellow journalism came to be, and what remains today as Wardman's main lasting contribution to the history of journalism. As Hearst's newspaper network expanded into Boston, Chicago, and Los Angeles, so did his immigrant urban comic characters, to include Popeye the Sailor Man, Flash Gordon, Prince Valiant, the Phantom, and Young Hedgie, drawn by Dr. Seuss. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you soon.